From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson, and that idiot that you just saw cross in front of the camera twice is a guy who just walked in moments ago, literally moments ago. It's Hector Bosa. So in just another few moments, we're going to get the show ready. But in the meantime, I'm going to let you know that you can check us out. You can actually see past episodes of ours on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. And you can also, and that's also where you can contact us at if you have any type of story or any type of thing that you want us to either cover or talk about. Kenny Graham is on the other side of the glass, but he's actually double dipping up right now because not only is he helping here, he's also helping out on Let the Good Times Roll next door.
So when am I going to get
So
my
as
shot?
soon as Kenny finds a little bit of time, we're going to, there we
Yeah,
go.
you see, I am the hottest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access to be yours truly, Hector Bosa. And the only idiot here is jealous Jaime.
No, you're the
Jaime,
only idiot
you
that's
see,
here,
yeah,
and I ain't jealous of you.
I'm part
How
of-
many times
I'm
do I
part
have
of-
to keep telling you I'm not jealous of you?
I'm part of the
I'm not jealous of you.
I am part of the Me Too movement because women harass me left and right.
You wish, you
And
dumbass.
You know what? And
You wish you had women doing that to you.
And I don't mind it half the time because they're really good looking. That's why. And so sometimes
First
when
of
I
all,
say
they're
no,
not
I mean
harassing
yes.
you. They're coming
But,
after you with
yeah,
torches and pitchforks to try and kill you.
Yes. I always say lovely things about you, and you always say heartful
You
meaningful
never
things.
say lovely
Did you-
things about
did
me.
you
What
ever
the hell
say-
are you talking
Did you
about?
ever say those things to Eric? Did you ever call him an idiot?
I didn't
Did
have
you
to
ever say-
because he
I
didn't act
say
like a
anything-
moron
I didn't
like
say
you
anything
always
or
do.
done anything to get your wrath at the moment, okay? So please, if you don't do it to him, please don't do it to me because I didn't do nothing wrong. in
You
the first
started it
place.
first.
What did I say? I'm the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on
You
cable access
called
TV.
me the other
No,
idiot.
in the beginning, who called me an idiot when I came in?
Because you showed
Thank
up
you,
late,
Eric.
knucklehead.
No, actually, I was early.
No, you wasn't
Yes,
early.
Okay, but anyway.
And you had to
wait,
cross in front of the TV twice.
I
like the
didn't-
drunken,
they didn't-
stupid head you are.
They didn't see me. So there.
Oh, they saw you.
No,
they
didn't.
saw you
No,
all right.
no,
They
no,
saw
they
you
saw
cross
it.
in front
No,
of the camera
no,
twice.
It was you.
No,
only saw
I'm
it.
sitting right here, idiot.
Why do you have to scream?
Why do you always have to
Why?
act the way you do?
What
Why are you
am I
always
asking?
drinking?
Why?
Why are you always drinking?
Because it's a. It's
Anybody ever tell you just say no?
Yes, actually, they do. They say they tell me. You know what people tell me on when they see this show sometimes?
What?
That you belong in an insane asylum.
No, you're the one that belongs
Do you
in the
know what?
insane
Look
asylum
how-
because you actually think you're
Wait a minute.
sexy.
Wait a minute. Look how you're acting. Listen to what
Look
you're
how
saying.
you're acting.
Yeah, exactly. You're acting, screaming and yelling, and I'm talking
Because
normal.
you're an instigator.
I haven't said anything
You
yet.
are an instigator.
Are you gonna
You are
spend-
a troublemaker. You like to stir trouble. You like to poke fun at everything.
Are you going to start?
And you never met
talking-
anybody that you liked, much less disliked.
Well, that's to be seen, but I know that one thing, that you scream, you yell for no reason.
Because you're an
And-
instigator.
And three, you're a jealous Jaime. That's all. Anybody that yells and screams
You're
and
this,
shout
you're,
like
you're
that.
this close to getting punched in the face.
Yeah,
You're
gee,
this close to getting
oh,
punched in
you're
the
gonna
face
punch
right
me in
now.
the face in the violence and see.
No, I'm going to get some people who can't stand you so they
yeah.
can fulfill their lifelong dream of kicking your ass.
Oh, you mean that's upper management? No, but seriously,
we ain't even
folks,
going there right now.
But he sees he can't do it himself. He has to get people, and even then.
I
Anyway,
could do that if I
but,
wanted to.
you know
I just
what?
got
Can
too much
we-
class for that.
Can we get to Can we get to sports, please, instead of you acting?
It's about
like a
time
damn
you started
fool?
saying something smart.
Hey, Dad, stop acting like a damn fool and let's talk
Look
about
who's
sport.
talking.
So, let's talk about the Rangers for a moment.
Yes, please. Let's talk about the Rangers because it seems like they're officially mailing it in for the rest of the season. They've already made two big trades in the last week or so. First, it was Michael Grabner to the Devils. Now they made a really big deal, a 3-player deal with Tampa involving JT Miller and Ryan McDonough. And now it's gotten to the point where Tampa is making a move for the Cup immediately. And how do they do that? By getting 2 of the Rangers' best players.
So are they building for the future like the Knicks are trying to do? And James Dolan owns the Rangers team.
Yeah, James
and wait a
Dolan
minute.
does own the Rangers, and things have gone horribly for the Rangers this season.
But they've won cups, Stanley Cups, right?
Not in almost a quarter century.
Okay, but they have won more than the Knicks have, right?
They've won more than the Knicks have, but they've also underachieved really badly in the playoffs too.
Yeah, okay. So the same guy that owns the Knicks owns the Rangers, but yet you don't harp on the Rangers.
At
as
least
you
the
do with
Rangers
Knicks.
made the playoffs for a long period of time.
But according to you, it doesn't matter the playoffs. It matters the gold, the cup. And
It does matter to win a championship.
But every time I mention that the Knicks
But
have
at least
made,
the Rangers made things interesting.
But
the only way the Knicks made things interesting is through major incompetence.
But every time I've mentioned that the Knicks have made the playoffs, the first thing you come out and say is that that's not the point. The point is that they have to win. They have to go to the finals, and they got to win. They got to win everything. So
and it's the Rangers'
own
own fault
for
for not doing enough to improve the team.
But that's a James Dolan. Why don't you bash him?
That's a James Dolan move. That's a Glenn Sather move. That's an every member of the front office move. And another thing, why does Glenn Sather still have a job? He's been there almost 2 decades. He's been there for the lean years and the so-called glory years. The farthest they've ever gone with Glenn Sather working in their front office was 2014 when they went to the finals and lost to the Kings.
And I'll tell you why. Because James Dolan, at times, could be faithful. He's a faithful person. He doesn't like to switch too many times. Now
It's blind faith.
Now sometimes, if pressured by fans, like they did with the Knicks, because I don't think Jeff Hornacek is coming back next year. And the rumor,
that's another unfair thing that might be happening.
If the rumor mill is true that Jeff Hornacek is leaving because of Joakim Noah getting pushed by him supposedly, and you're finally starting the young guys for a change. That being said, if you get a guy like Mark Jackson to coach the team, somebody with more credibility than Jeff Hornacek, I think you have a team. I think you're in the start just like the Rangers. You're starting from scratch and you're trying to get better. I compare the two because James Dolan owns both teams. Now, did he stick his nose more with the Knicks than he did with the Rangers? Yes, he did.
There were times when I questioned whether he even knew he had a hockey team because of what happened with that franchise for the early part of the 21st century.
But now they're trying to break down everything, just like the Knicks organization, and they're going to try to rebuild. Now, will they get lucky in rebuilding? Who knows? Because right now you have on the Knicks Emmanuel Mudiay, Trevor Burke.
It's Trey Burke.
Trey Burke, Beasley. Oh, well, Trey Burke didn't want to go to OKC. He wanted to start with the G League with the New York Knicks because of his faith, as he was saying. And if faith tells you, whether you're a Christian, whatever religion puts you in the right direction, as long as it's for peace and love, that's what counts. But he said he wanted to be on the Knicks because he would have the best opportunity there. Now, you have the connection between the two guards that know each other. They're playing well together. And then Emmanuel Mudiay and Frank Nikita, the second coming off the bench. If they do well together, the only person that's left out is Brooks Courtney Lee, because Brooks is out with a shoulder injury. So when Brooks come back, now let's say in 2019 they say what's his name, Kyrie Irving, he wants to come to the Knicks. Supposedly that happens. That's the start of a good team because you're building already, and if they get that forward from college, if they land in the number 8 or number 7 place, if they get that forward, they're in a good position to start in a nice thing. Now, what happened to Joakim Noah is, I think, it's very unfair for the reason that you can't trade a man if you don't know what he can do on the court. Right now, it's garbage time. You might as well put him in. You might as well. You might as well give him a shot, rest Cantor. And Quinn is not coming back next year. So you got Luke, what's his name, coming up. You got to do something. And same with the Rangers. Rangers now, except for the Goldie, everybody's gone. It all depends how they pick. Now, the guys that the Rangers got, are they any good?
Well, basically what the Rangers did is, for one, they wound up getting a conditional draft pick in the Devils deal. With Tampa right now, they wound up getting in return, and we're going to see exactly what the particulars of the deal was. For the record, it's JT Miller and Ryan McDonough both going from the Rangers to Tampa. And they also traded away one of their best players over to Boston as well, which was the guy it was the guy that used to play for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So when you think about it, they're basically looking towards the future right now. So I'm going to see exactly who the Rangers wound up getting over here.
So that's
as far as the Knicks themselves, it's gotten to the point where I've so had my fill with that franchise right now. For the record, the Rangers wound up getting Vladimir Nemesnikov and a pair of prospects, Libor Hadjic and Brett Howden, who were spending the majority of their time in the minor leagues.
Heavy hitters.
Mm-hmm. And they also made a minor deal getting Chris Bygras from Colorado in exchange for Ryan Graves. And then there was the other trade that the Rangers wound up making with the Bruins. I'm going to see if I can find it. It's the Rick Nash deal. Rick Nash wound up being traded by the Rangers to the Bruins. So that's 4 of their best players, 2 of whom were major fan favorites for the franchise, getting sent away. Now, as far as who won at the trade deadline, the trade deadline was earlier today at 3 in the NHL. For Boston to get Rick Nash and not have to give up any of their frontline prospects just goes to show you how shrewd their front office is. See, this is the difference between the haves and the have-nots. The haves know how to maneuver and manipulate their roster. And the have-nots, like the Rangers and the Knicks, or if you want to go a little bit deeper, Sacramento Kings, Phoenix Suns, Phoenix Coyotes, et al. Still struggle to try and put together a competent roster with a competent scouting department and
Hell,
staff.
you can say the same thing about the Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns are beyond help. Let's face facts. The Browns are so much beyond help, it's not even funny. Now, as far as the Rangers are concerned, Michael Grabner wound up being sent across the river to the Devils in exchange for a B-level prospect. Bottom line, the Rangers are thinking ahead to maybe 2019, 2020, possibly 2021, or maybe even further than that when you think about it.
So maybe.
And as far as Henrik Lundqvist is concerned, don't be so sure that Henrik Lundqvist is going to be a Ranger anytime in the near future either. He's 36 years of age. His best days are not are pretty much well behind him right now. Not to say that he's not great anymore, but it's gotten to the point where the Rangers need to look ahead to the future for another goalie.
And also, why would he stick on a rebuilding stage?
Because he's signed to a long-term deal. That's why, and he may be untradeable.
He can go. It all depends. It all depends. If you need a great goalie for a short amount of time in a playoff system, you never know. The Rangers can make a deal about contract because it's all about eating money and so on and so forth. It all depends. At least he's got a no trade clause. He doesn't have that, so you could actually trade him if somebody wants him for a short amount period of time. So he's still valuable.
Tell you what, though,
he's still valuable.
There is a little value in Lundqvist, and just in the slightest case, the Rangers do decide to move Lundqvist, because I still think he can help a contender who might be a goalie away from being a real contender. I think they might command some top-line prospects down the road.
At least two.
And speaking of ex-Rangers, I saw that the Penguins also got Derek Brassard from Ottawa in exchange for a mere first-round pick. This just goes to show you that the Penguins are not resting on their laurels. They want that third straight title. Now, who lost out in the trade deadline? The Capitals. Why? Because, for one, their salary cap is killing them. And because of that, they could not make any deals. You can even look right over here in our neck of the woods to see that not only did the Rangers get very, very little for their frontline stars, the Islanders pretty much wound up sending away Jason Chimera for peanuts. So there's also the issue of John Tavares too. John Tavares is still without a contract for next year. They don't know if they're going to trade him. They don't know if they want to re-sign him. They really dropped the ball with what they want to do with John Tavares for down the road.
Well, I can tell you one thing, that Washington's in first place, Philadelphia's in second, the Devils are in third, Columbus in fourth, Islanders are in fifth, Carolina is in sixth, and the Rangers are in last place.
And if you want to look at the playoff races, because these teams are roughly 15 to 20 games away from starting the real season, which is the playoffs. Tampa right now has the most points in the Eastern Conference. They have 87 points right now. So in order of points, it's Tampa, Washington, Toronto, Boston, Philly, Pittsburgh. The Devils would be in 7th place in the Eastern Conference right now. And that means they would have to play Washington in the first round. And knowing how much of a playoff flop they've been historically, don't be surprised to see the Devils move at least one round into the next level.
Who would have ever thought that Vegas would be in first place?
Who would have thought that Vegas would be the best team in the Western Conference? This just goes to show you.
Is that a weak division or is that a strong division?
The Pacific Division is pretty strong, though. I mean, there's San Jose, which still has Joe Thornton. There's Anaheim, which still has some really, really good young players.
I mean, you have San Jose, Calgary, Anaheim, Los Angeles, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Arizona.
Yep.
Arizona
And if you want to
go
in order of points out west, Vegas is the leader right now, and then there's Nashville, which is trying to really make a run to defend the Western Conference title. Then Winnipeg, and then Minnesota, San Jose, Anaheim, Dallas, and Calgary.
Right.
And only 1 point separates Calgary from St. Louis. 2 points separate Calgary from the 10th place team out west, which is the Kings, another team that's pretty dangerous the last quarter of the season.
So the Rangers, they're imploding and exploding.
And they have a 7-game losing streak now.
And
they lost last night in overtime to Detroit.
And now you have to figure, like you said, it has to take at least 2 to 3 years. Not even. It all depends what players you get back. But normally, under normal circumstances, you'll find out within 2 to 3 years if they're any good, if the team's going to actually be good or not. Or maybe 4. It all depends. But there was some. Yeah. Read this for a minute, because there's something about college swimming and more high school.
Yeah, let's look at what's going on a little closer to home.
Please,
specifically with what's happening here on Staten Island. First off, I see Wagner Swimming, that is, wound up competing at a meet in Long Island. And their star senior, Maddie McNichol, and this is on the women's side. She won the Northeast Conference individual title by winning the 1,650-yard freestyle in 17 minutes and 7.5 seconds, which was great. And also on the men's side, freshman Wythe Spike won the 200 backstroke in 2 minutes. And he also wound up finishing second in the butterfly, which was in 2:03:42. And back on the girls' side, Kelly Boston was third, also in the 200 fly.
Wow. And then more.
Yep.
LaSalle beats more.
Mm-hmm. This is in
48.
This is in the high school circuit. Big disappointing loss for the kids from Moore Catholic. They wound up losing by a point to LaSalle Academy in the Catholic League's B semifinals. 49-48 was the final score.
Two good teams going at it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been watching the Olympics lately?
I have seen bits and pieces of the Olympics. They concluded with the closing ceremonies yesterday.
Look, and here's the thing. Do we worry about silver and bronze? We just worry about gold, right?
Yeah, a lot of Americans want to see, a lot of American fans who follow hockey or skiing or figure skating.
To the women's hockey team.
Yeah, the women's hockey team played a tremendous game against their hated rivals from the North, Canada, which is Canada.
Yeah.
And after the Americans won the inaugural gold medal 20 years ago, Canada won the last 4 gold medals at the expense of the Americans in women's hockey. And what happened? This time, they had an outstanding gold medal game. It went to a shootout, and it was the Americans that came away with the victory in the shootout, and they wound up winning 3-2. And there was a lot of controversy in the medal ceremony because one of the Canadian players, just as soon as she had the silver medal draped over her neck, she wound up ripping the medal off her neck in frustration, and that caused a lot of backlash from the fans.
And here's the thing, okay, let's do this for a moment. It came down to Norway with 14 goals. I'm just doing the goals. Germany 14, Canada 11, United States 9, Netherlands 8, South Korea 5, OA Russia 2. They've been in trouble again.
Yeah, the Olympic athletes from Russia, they were not allowed to represent. The Russians that competed in this year's Olympics were banned from representing their country, but they were given special permission to compete under the Olympic banner, which is a major difference between that and representing their country.
And also there was a scandal once again. Curling.
Mm-hmm.
Of
As
all
it turns
the things
out,
you need steroids, curling.
Go figure, first of all. Second of all, this same woman that you're talking about, who, by the way, wore a T-shirt that said, "I do not dope," well, this woman wound up getting busted for taking PEDs.
You know.
And speaking of curling, the American men won their very first curling gold medal.
I can't believe they took wrestling out, but they have curling.
Well, keep in mind, wrestling is a summer Olympic
yeah,
sport.
but I'm just saying they took out wrestling. They took out wrestling, the Olympic sport that started with the Greeks and the Romans back then, which is probably one of the longest ones that you had. They took that away, but curling. You know, you figure, but curling goes a long way too into I think the 14.
Well, the sport of curling itself dates back to I think the 16th century in Scotland.
Exactly.
Yet the game has been perfected by Canadians who dominated in the Olympics for the last 3 or 4 competitions. But this year, Canada was a major disappointment in curling for the men and the women, because only the men were able to come away with a bronze medal while the women were shut out. They did get a gold medal in mixed curling, which isn't really the same thing, because they want to see either the men compete or the women compete. They did not want to have a mixed team of men and women competing in curling. The Canadians were not happy about that.
The U.S. had actually a lot of Olympians this year, which is good. You know, I don't know how these guys do it, because they have to do it on their own salary, and they have to work, and it did not like the Russians of the old days where all they did was just, let's say, play hockey. Because that's why the 1986 team was so great, because the Russian team at that time was a pro team.
You mean the 1980s?
1980, but in 1986, that's when the Russian team that was almost a pro team that was supposed to beat the college team. Now we have actual real players now. You know, all-stars, let's say.
Yep. And
pros.
just to give you an idea about
Is it the same?
the American curling team, these are guys that are made up of backgrounds in which one guy runs his own liquor store, another guy
I like him.
runs, I think works in retail, and also the majority of American curlers, they live in Minnesota, either Minnesota or Wisconsin.
Can you blame them?
Where the weather is notoriously brutal.
Yes.
Temperatures are in the sub-zeros every single day, yet you see a lot of kids and their families on the ice. If they're not playing hockey, they're playing curling, and they take the games really seriously.
I don't blame them. You know, over here we don't, get a broom and so forth. That used to be done by brooms. They don't use brooms anymore.
Well, they use special brooms now.
Now they use the pickup.
And you talked about hockey before. This was also the first year where they decided to go back to having college kids and minor leaguers, whereas the Russians won their gold medal. They're called the Olympic athletes from Russia, but they are Russian athletes.
They're pros.
Yeah.
They're actually pros.
They compete at home in Russia. Some of them compete in the Czech Republic. Some compete in Germany. Some compete in Switzerland. They're competing all over Europe. There's even a couple of guys that competed in China that wound up competing in the Olympic Games.
And that's the thing, in those specific countries, that's all they do. They have actually a budget for them to do that.
Yep.
And they also play in leagues, like you said. So when they come out, they're just a pro team. They're a pro team. That's why they decided to go to the national hockey team and go, okay, guys, let's put the pros in and see what we got.
Yeah.
Now, was that better than having the college kids?
At least the Americans were able to get a couple of silver medals out of it, but I just found it really coincidental that after the Canadians, who had dominated from 1924 up until maybe 1952, and then were succeeded by the Russians. I find it a little coincidental that when they started using NHL players in 1998, that first, the Czech Republic won, and then the Canadians won the last 4 Olympic gold medals in hockey. And suddenly this year, with guys that were playing in other leagues that were not the NHL, the Russians went back and reclaimed their place as the kings of hockey.
Look at that. You see what I mean? It just goes to show you.
Mm-hmm.
But
and for the record, the American men consisted of players that competed in the minor leagues here,
right,
4 college kids, and other Americans that competed in Europe.
I think they should put some pros in.
They-
1 or 2 pros, because normally the way it was set up.
Technically, they had some pros.
They
They just
had-
competed. They just
what
competed in the
was it?
semi-pros.
I forgot how the lineup was supposed to be. At least 10 pros and about 3 or 4 college kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they were supposed to do in basketball, but they didn't do it. They don't do it. They're all pros. But you know what? In basketball, that's going to be scary because other countries are getting better.
Yeah.
There's a lot of foreign players over here.
We saw that in 2004 when
You know,
Argentina
that's-
won the gold.
That's scary, and we all thought, hey, but you have the lady doing the downhill, spreading her ashes of a father.
Yeah.
You
Which
know,
was Lindsey Vonn.
Lindsey Vonn,
And she sprinkled the ashes of her grandfather
grandfather,
at the Olympic complex.
and also winning the bronze medal.
Mm-hmm. 2 bronze medals to end her Olympics. The thing is, we don't even know if this is her last Olympics or not.
Well, she
There's a
said
strong
it would be.
possibility. She said it would be because somebody brought up a rumor that she's going to try and make a comeback for Beijing in 2022.
Well, you know what? It all depends. People may talk now about retiring, but because what's his name? The center from the Miami Heat, the one that retired.
You mean Alonzo Mourning?
The person that retired because of blood clots.
Oh, you mean Chris Bosh?
He's planning to make a comeback.
Yeah, he made it clear he wants to return. He never retired.
He never really retired.
But the problem is, blood clots are a very serious and dangerous condition for any individual, not just athletes.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a reason why he hasn't been able to break 70 games each of his last 2 years.
And even that what was that thing we were talking about before, that about the heart, that sickness that this particular athlete has a heart problem, or
You talking about Isaiah Austin?
yeah, the one that has
Marfan syndrome,
Marfan syndrome.
which is what 2 of my fiance's children have.
Exactly. So, what do you do with that? I mean, do you stop him and live his dream, or do you say, if he can compete and the doctors say he can do it,
I'd like to know who this doctor was, first of all, because I'll tell you right now, if that was some other doctor, they never would have cleared Austin to play. Because my fiance made it loud and clear, any person who has Marfan syndrome is barred from competing in any physical activity, including sports.
Yeah, but then you deprive him, because now what is the American Civil Liberties of Disabilities saying? Because now
Can't deprive anybody because of their disability.
Exactly. So you got one that's disabled, like they do here, and who don't understand disabilities like they do here.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you have this kid who wants to have a dream. So how do you balance it out? He can die at any moment, or do you balance it out just like Chris Bosh?
That's the fear. If he goes back to playing, he runs the risk of dying on the court.
Yeah,
And the first thing I think of when I think of a star player with a heart problem, well, 2 people actually. One was Len Bias, although his heart problem was brought on by cocaine use. But the other person
Right.
that I think of primarily is Hank Gathers. Hank Gathers died on the court because of a heart arrhythmia.
Right. Right.
And he made it tough on himself because he stopped taking his meds.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's by choice, but Lithuania didn't get in it. Kazakhstan got 0.
And for the record, the United States...
Look at the lineup. Jesus, look at this lineup. And
For the
just
record,
go
the
along.
United States wound up finishing 4th with a grand total of 23 medals. In the last, 8 years ago, they wound up winning 37 medals in Vancouver. And the Norwegians broke that record by 2 this past weekend.
And then what happened in Florida with the school shooting,
Yeah.
they had a problem now with the Olympic shooting too. They had a problem now.
Yeah.
There's a problem with them. Is there a problem with the shooting that happened in Florida to what's happening in the Olympic sports now?
There shouldn't have to be, because the shooting that's going on in the biathlon and also at the Summer Olympics, that's target shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going after a bullseye
yeah,
in these games.
And that's that. I don't know. They were discussing.
And
things
it's
about
funny that you mention the shootings that took place in Florida, because Parkland is 50 miles north of Miami, where I have a whole lot of relatives living. And Parkland, where Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is located, just recently had a trio of students speaking at an event in New Jersey to talk about strict gun control laws. And just in case people don't know, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School is also the same school that produced the current Chicago Cub, Anthony Rizzo, who made it a point to return home so he could speak to the group of people that gathered at the campus just hours after the shooting. And right after that, they wound up closing the campus down for a week and a half. And just yesterday, the kids and their families went back to campus to pick up their belongings that they left behind in the shooting.
Yeah, I think they start on Wednesday.
Yeah, classes resume on Wednesday.
Classes resume on Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday. It's for some reason they did in the middle of the week that fully. They resume their classes on Wednesday, but I applaud these kids that remember, ladies and gentlemen. You know, these are kids that are going to be the 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds. Remember, they're going to vote, and Congress better beware.
Yep. And
who would
unfortunately,
have thought that bunch of kids? First, it was Kaepernick with his knee, right?
taking
a
sitting
knee.
down, then taking a knee.
Sitting down, taking a knee. Oh, dear God, he's desecrating nonsense and blah, blah, blah. You know, some people said he was, some people said he wasn't.
He never was.
Right?
All he did was send a message that he was sick and tired of all of the atrocities and all of the bias that has been made against people of color and other ethnicities.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine if the Olympics, if some people from the Olympics actually protested from the U.S.
50 years ago, we had Tommy Smith and John Carlos, and all they did was raise a fist.
Yeah, but back then, here's what happened back then. For protesting, they either wore black socks, anything black, shirts that protest, but the one that made the most was the gloves that went like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the picture that you always see. That's a monumental picture right there. That's $1,000 shot. But you know, kids, I'm all for you. You got to do what you have to do. Change the world, because we living in a place where we live now. We live for now, and we live for later. It's funny, but when it comes to sports, it's going to be a tough time when it comes to sports, because now, you know, thank goodness no big tragedies have happened so far in the arena, in any arenas that I know of, except for in 19.
In the sporting world?
Yeah, in the sporting world.
Well,
it hasn't happened in the sporting world.
You mean recently or all time? Because
no, I remember back in the 70s, the terrorist.
Yeah. 1968, there was the murders of those 11 Israeli athletes in Munich.
Exactly.
But then 20 years after that, there was
the Atlanta bombing.
Well,
that was
the Olympic Park bombing that cost a police officer her life. That was in '96. But 7 years before that, 1989, even though it wasn't a terrorist attack, but there were 106 people who were killed during a soccer match in England.
Yeah, look at that.
It was the infamous Hillsborough incident that took place during a Liverpool game.
Hey, you know what's funny, Aditi? Speaking of soccer, did you know that what's his name brought a soccer team? What's that guy's name? Beckham?
Yeah, David Beckham has a soccer team now.
David
you know who
Beckham.
else has a soccer team? Mike Piazza.
Look at that.
Mike Piazza has an Italian soccer team that he's a part owner of.
Wow.
And I think because of his new responsibilities, he had to move to Italy full time.
You know, people do wondrous things in the world, you know.
It just goes to show you that not everything is revolved around the particular sport that they're in.
Oh, the Yankees bringing back Reggie Jackson.
Mm-hmm. They brought him back. A-Rod has been brought back.
Nick Swisher.
Hideki Matsui also. They're all back as instructors. And Piazza was back with the Mets over the weekend as an instructor.
Look at that. I'm telling you, Boston and Yankees have a really, really good team.
The rivalry's going to get a lot better this year. Trust me. Now that the Red Sox signed J.D. Martinez to be either the first baseman or the designated hitter, he strengthens their lineup by himself.
If it plays out well
and
nobody gets seriously hurt,
this
should be a very, very competitive season.
Yeah.
Now, with the Mets, I think if their arms hold out,
that's the major issue with them.
They're going to have a tough season, but I think they'll be okay. They'll be in the middle, probably.
It's not like they did anything that was...
They didn't do anything big.
They didn't do anything big, but they didn't do anything terrible either. I mean, they brought back Jay Bruce. They signed Todd Frazier, who's going to give them, at best, a .230 average. But what he lacks in average, he more than makes up for with power and really good defense at third base. And also they have Anthony Swarzak for their bullpen. And also they brought in Jason Vargas to strengthen their pitching rotation. So look at the pitching rotation that they have right now. It's Vargas to go along with Harvey and Syndergaard and DeGrom and Steven Matz and Zach Wheeler and Seth Lugo and Robert Gesellman. That's potentially 8 deep in their starting rotation, which means somebody is going to have to either
go to the bullpen,
or if they have options, minor league options, get sent to the minor leagues.
Right.
The bullpen isn't so terrible either. Jody Familia's 100% healthy. They signed Anthony Swarzak. Last summer, they made the trade for A.J. Ramos. They also have Jerry Blevins as a lefty specialist. When you think about it, the Mets are decent. And you also have a new manager, Mickey Callaway, who's been nothing but a breath of fresh air for them. And we've already seen that he's not taking anything lying down, because Dominic Smith was supposed to start at first base a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
He showed up late for the game, and he wound up getting benched. So we already see he's laying down the law in the locker room
already, and with the Yankees, do they have a good bullpen as well?
The bullpen is good. I mean, when you think about it, Chapman, Betances, David Robertson, Tommy Canley, Chad Green, who might be a fifth starter if he plays his cards right this spring.
Sheffield.
Justice Sheffield, who, by the way, pitched over the weekend. He had a good first inning of work, but then really ran into trouble in his second inning. So the line didn't really look too good. 3 earned runs in 1 2/3 innings. But Justice Sheffield is a guy who might be able to be a future starting pitcher for them.
Right, and the Yankees are somewhat stacked themselves. They're pretty well stacked.
And they've already, because of their crowded outfield, they already traded Jabari Blash to the Angels. So now their outfield rotation is Judge, Stanton, Brett Gardner, Jacoby Ellsbury, Aaron Hicks. So that's potentially 5 guys to rotate around 3 spots. There's also the matter of Clint Frazier, who played a little bit last year and played well in his limited time. That's 6 deep in their outfield right now.
And that's going to be tough because, you're not going to get the 2 other power hitters out, so there's only 1 position left.
Which means either Stanton will be the designated hitter and Judge will be the right fielder, or vice versa.
Vice versa, yeah. Do the Yankees have a designated, an actual designated hitter, or they?
Right now, it looks like it's going to be Stanton.
Oh wow.
Mm-hmm. And he's okay with that too.
Being a designated hitter is a tough thing.
Yeah.
When you're used to playing the game, it keeps you in, and when you're sitting your rear end down, I don't know how these guys do it. That they come up out of boom, hit it, and that's it. I mean, I don't know how they do it. They're special.
Yeah.
They're very special. I guess because Manny Mota.
I remember Manny Mota.
Manny Mota. He hit until I forgot what century, and they wanted to bring him back. But because the Cleveland Indians, I think, were starting to go to the playoffs, he said no, because all he had to do was go up there one time and get a hit, and then he would have survived another century. That would have been something. But the Yankees looking good.
So far, so good.
So far, on paper, they're looking fantastic. Boston's going to give them a run. Baltimore's going to give them a run.
Yep.
The Astros.
Houston is still the
team to beat.
Some people say Houston is still the team to beat in not just the American League, but all of Major League Baseball. I mean, after all, they are the champions, and they also made the trade to get Garrett Cole from Pittsburgh. So they strengthened their pitching rotation by maybe about 15 or 20 wins this season.
And also the Yankees, they're getting, instead of letting the prospects play, they're getting all these people that they're buying.
Yeah.
I mean, what's left? Second base and shortstop. And let the young guys play. See what you have. I mean, what have you got to lose?
Keep in mind, they also made the trade with Arizona to get get that utility infielder.
Exactly.
So there's a strong possibility they might make him the everyday third baseman or second baseman.
Yeah. So.
And there's also Ronald Torreyes, who played 108 games last year and was a really good hitter for them.
So the Yankees are stacked. Their minor league system finally is good.
Minor league system is so much better right now.
Finally.
And you mentioned Sheffield. There's also Frazier. There's also Chance Adams, who's a really good pitching prospect. There's also Loaiziga, a pitcher named Loaiziga, who's a really good prospect. They have so many different guys to look at. Domingo Acevedo, another pitching prospect who they have. They are loaded everywhere from position players to starters to rotation.
Yeah.
I shudder to think what is going to happen with this team in the next year or two. I hate to say this, but it could be that the American League might come down to the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Astros, maybe the Cleveland Indians, because they are the defending Central Division champions, and maybe even the Twins. The Twins are stacking up with a lot of young players, and they surprised everybody last year by being that second wild card, they're going to challenge for that Central Division title this year.
You know, it's a tough call, and
Even the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim made some moves. They wound up strengthening their infield. They got themselves a new second baseman who's going to be giving them a lot of depth. So the Angels are going to be surprising a lot of people this year. And, of course, it also helps that they have Mike Trout, who right now is the single best player in baseball. I mean, he does everything. Hit for power, hit for average. He has quickness on the base paths. He catches everything in sight in the outfield, and he also has a great throwing arm. Yeah, he's the quintessential five-tool player right now.
Yeah, Tim Tebow he's trying out for the Mets, but
he's back in training camp with the Mets for the second straight year.
His ankle, he got his foot caught in a sprinkler, and he messed up his ankle a little bit.
You know, that's what happened to Mickey Mantle all those years ago during a regular season game.
Yeah, so Tim Tebow is supposed to be a good power hitter. You know,
tell you what, though,
he's not the only person that's transferred from football to baseball.
Yeah,
because Deion Sanders. And
there's also Russell Wilson on the Yankees.
Yes, exactly.
Although he's only doing this for spring training.
Really?
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah, he only goes to spring training just to try and get his baseball fix in. I mean, he did that with the Rockies when he was in their minor league system. He did that with the Texas Rangers when he was in their training camp.
Is he any good?
He's a pretty decent athlete. If you see him in batting practice, he can launch a couple of home runs or two.
But he plays in games, right?
He will play in games, yes.
Imagine if they tell him you made the team.
Oh, boy. As what, though? Would he be an infielder or an outfielder?
It would have to be infield because the outfield's already stacked. And you have to get rid of Jacoby Ellsbury in some shape or form because every trade that guy's been in.
That's another thing. Jacoby Ellsbury has a no-trade clause in his contract, and he has to sign off on whether he wants to leave or not. And he made it loud and clear. He still has unfinished business with the Yankees. He wants to win a championship here.
Exactly, because he knows that they're stacked.
Mm-hmm.
But just like Carmelo Anthony, when he left, I'd rather try to go to a contender. You always try to go to a contender and try to win. Hey, LeBron James's team, because it's not the GMs and it's not the coaches anymore. It's LeBron James's team.
It's long been LeBron James.
He carries all the weight. He tells people what to do. He curses out GMs.
Yet he's still involved in rumors that have him going from here to
LA.
The moon.
And from New York Knicks, LA.
Now there's even a movement to get him to the Sixers because there are Sixer fans that have a Twitter page that say join the process.
Well, the Sixers have a really nice team.
They're a decent team. I mean, they're not great, but they've got two great big men. Joel Embiid, who right now looks like the best center in the game. Ben Simmons, who's a 6'10", 6'11" point forward, who has a handle like nobody's business. J.J. Redick, who's a terrific shooter. T.J. McConnell, who's a very underrated point guard. This is what happens when you have a head coach and you stick with it.
Man.
Brett Brown, who's won 75 games in almost 5 years, he's been there for their 20-win, 15-win. He was their coach when they won 10 games a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
10!
Yeah.
And he has been able to keep his job. You know why? Because they have faith that he's the guy to try and help turn things around with that team.
And with the Knicks, it's always been either Dolan sticking his nose in or they actually got the wrong guy. And Dolan still had to stick his nose in because right now, like I said before, everybody was cramming for Phil Jackson. Oh, we want him as a GM. And then they wanted him as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want to coach no more. Now they want him as a GM. And now he's gone. Okay? Will Hornacek be there next year?
Quite frankly,
Who
he
knows?
deserves to be there next year.
Who
He needs
knows?
to be given more of a long leash than this.
People, there's already saying that he may be gone. What did you think of the All-Star game?
What did I think of the All-Star game? It was a terrific game, and it just goes to show you
No defense, all offense until the last
no
quarter.
defense, but we still saw who the dominant force in the NBA right now is. It's still LeBron James.
The Eastern Division is still the strongest. The Western Division.
The Western
normally
Conference is the strongest.
Exactly.
Let's put it that way. Just to give you an idea how teams work.
We got 4 minutes left.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Brett Brown has been the Sixers head coach for almost 5 years now. You know how many coaches the Knicks have had in the last 17 years? Don Chaney, Herb Williams, Lenny Wilkins, Herb Williams again, Larry Brown, Isaiah Thomas, Mike D'Antoni, Mike Woodson, Derek Fisher, Kurt Rambis, Jeff Hornacek. 10 coaches in 17 years.
And they may change again.
And they might change again. Whereas the Cleveland Browns have seemed to change head coaches once every 5 minutes.
Hey, what do you think about Cousins coming to the Jets?
Kirk Cousins? It's not my idea of a franchise quarterback. I mean, he's a decent player, but is he the type of guy who you want in the clutch against a championship contender like the Patriots? No, he's not the guy. Because for one, he's terrible against winning franchises. You know what his record is against winning teams? 4 wins and 19 losses. You know what his record is as a starting quarterback? And he's had 6 years in the league. 26 wins, 30 losses, and a tie.
Wow.
Is that who the Jets should have as their future quarterback? I don't think so.
Well, it's going to come down to it anytime soon. It's going to come down to it. But as you can see, you know, they got to do something at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They have to do something, and they're willing to open up their pockets now. That's very rarely done.
Yep.
I mean, Muhammad Wilkerson is gone, I think, from the Jets.
It's
And
painfully obvious that he's going to be out of here.
You know, there's a transition going on.
And also David Harris retired.
There's a transition going on, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. At least
For me, if I'm the Knicks, I would much rather draft a quarterback.
If you're the Knicks, you'd rather draft a quarterback? You know what?
Well, they
You're
need a hardwood quarterback, that's for sure. But if I'm the Jets, I would much rather draft my way to a quarterback.
You know what, ladies and gentlemen? With a minute left, I want to say thank you for listening to us, even though it becomes lunacy and jealous Jaime rants and raves.
I
and
keep
loses
telling
his
you,
head.
I am not jealous
So,
of you. Why do you
ladies and
always push
gentlemen,
this thing
I
too
like
far?
to say I am the hardest, baddest, sexiest man on cable access TV.
No,
If you
you're
wanna
not. You are the dopiest.
If you want to contact me at thehomeinvadersriottshow.com, or if not, just homeinvaders@yahoo.com, and talk to me if you want to be on my show or even on this show, because I do have a little bit of pull. So, you know, what do you got to say, JJ?
I just want to say thanks to everybody for watching at home. We certainly hope that you enjoyed the Olympics. Thanks to Kenny Graham, who just rushed into the other side of the glass so he can get us on out of here.
Yes.
And thanks to you for being here.
Yes, so happy trails to you until we meet again.
Instead of happy trails, how about taking us on out of here with tiny bubbles?
Tiny bubbles.
Good night, everyone.
In the wine makes you feel happy, makes you feel fine. Night night. Feel fine.